Howdy, peeps. And here we are. Today, we're going to be rejoining book club. The JJ Thrive Zone book club to talk about this book, Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. Join the Journey Radio starts right now.
Welcome to the infusion of positive energy into the lives of single Latter-day Saints everywhere. This is Joy in the Journey Radio.
And welcome back, peeps, to another wonderful, splendiferous, exciting episode of Joy in the Journey Radio. I love having fun with stuff. That's great. Welcome back, peeps. This is episode number 374, Buy Back Your Time. We're going to talk about this book, and I'm your host for Join the Journey Radio. If you're viewing the program live, please join the chat and tell us where you're from. If you're viewing the program at a later date, leave a comment down below and let us know where you're from, because that will help us with the algorithms. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about the book. So this book, I have to say, I give it like 4 out of 5 stars. I would. It's very well done. Um, Without question, it's a book for entrepreneurs. Now, I understand that not everyone in the audience here is an entrepreneur, right? I mean, Join the Journey Radio exists to help Latter-day Saint singles thrive in their single years. So, not everyone is going to equate thriving with being an entrepreneur. Um, some will, some won't. So, before you tune out, um, let me just say that the reason why I'm featuring this book in book club is because I think some of the advice that he gives for entrepreneurs has direct application to Latter-day Saint singles. So some of the ideas he has for starting and running a business can help Latter-day Saint singles confront and overcome the challenges of LDS singles life. And the way he applies his business approach to his personal life provides a key that LDS singles can use to unlock a life that just thrives in their single years. And that's what Join the Journey Radio is all about. So let's get started. Let's see if I can pull this up. Try to do something that I haven't done with this platform. If I get a new platform, try to see if I can get this to. Let's see what happens when I press this button. Oh, that's so beautiful. Oh, and now let's see what happens when I press this button. Ooh, I love it, I love it, I love it. Big boy with a new toy. Oh, yeah. Okay, let's get started. Let's get started with the book here. All right. If I can switch off to, oh yeah, let's try this. Yes, okay. So I can get a better view of what's going on here. So, yes, Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. Get unstuck, reclaim your freedom, and build your empire. So, what initially attracted me to this book was the title. I mean, how many of you out there wish you had just one extra hour in a day? Like the day was 25 hours long instead of 24. You know, what could you do with that extra hour? I think a lot of us, especially those who are interested in productivity and, helping to, I guess, my engineer mindset. I think in terms of efficiency, that's how I'm trained. That's how I'm trained to function as an engineer. So, buy back your time. It's like, whoa, wait. It kind of gives it that suggestion that you can get extra hours out of your day, and there are things you can do to buy back your time. When he says buy back your time, he's being totally serious, right? He's talking about exchanging money for time. And that's basically it's basically the idea, right? Uh, and the money is given to people who do things for you. That frees up your time to do other things. Um, Relatively simple concept, but the way he approaches it and integrates it into his business has direct application for those of us who are single and are trying to manage, a whole lot of different things. And I don't know about you, I wear a number of different hats, right? So how do you find the balance between everything? One of the things I've struggled with is to maintain the continuity of his program while at the same time doing my PhD program. And being back in school as an older student is definitely a challenge. So, you know, I saw this title of the book and I thought, hey, let's check this out. So, what we're going to do today is I'm going to share with you some quotes, some excerpts that I've pulled out of the book from my reading, and we're going to talk about them. So, let us go forth and discuss. All right, so here's the first quote. Stephen Covey once said, "The key is in not spending time, but in investing it." Inside this book, you'll find exactly how to do that. You'll find a systematic approach with tactics and strategies synthesized from two failed companies, a lost fiance, reading over 1,200 business and self help books, running the largest SaaS training and mentoring group in the world, and giving numerous talks on buying back your time. Not only do I personally use everything taught here, but have thousands of others. As a result, they have more energy, feel excited about the future, and they love, oh, there's a typo there. And they love their businesses again. That work, their employees are happier at home, they're better friends, parents, and spouses. Oh, and their companies have grown exponentially. I don't know about you, but that description right there seems like his life is thriving. And isn't that what we want as Latter-day Saint singles? We want to thrive in our single years. None of us really know how long we're going to be single, and I'm sure that a lot of us would prefer to be married. But while we're here in this space, we don't know how long we're going to be here in this space. Why not work on making it the best that it can be? Why not work on thriving? And if you want to thrive, I don't know of a better description here than what he gives as the result of the methodology that he's employed. Now, spoiler alert. Towards the end of the book, he talks about how this method that he applies in his business he applies it in his personal life. So because I was just thinking as I was reading the book, I was just like, wow, you ever tried applying this in your personal life? And it turns out towards the end of the book, he describes how he puts it in his personal life. So, like I said, it is a book primarily written for entrepreneurs and people who are starting and running businesses. But again, what he has here has direct application, I believe, to Latter-day Saint singles. And here's the result: more energy, feel excited about the future, love their businesses again. At work, their employees are happier. At home, they're better friends, parents, and spouses, and their companies have grown exponentially. To me, that's a pretty succinct description of thriving. So let's dig in and get some more of the details about how this happens. Uh, okay, learning how to buy back my own time has created an incredible life. This week, I'll spend 6 hours growing my 8-figure businesses. I'll train for an Ironman. I'll volunteer with inner city youth. I'll write my next book. I'll look for my next investment. I'll give my attention and resources to the at risk entrepreneurs who give me so much energy and joy. Best of all, I'll spend time with my kids, eat lunch with my wife, and the four of us will enjoy dinner together every night. None of this has come because I simply grinded harder. All of it has come because I learned to think and act differently inside my company. So that every moment invested in it has allowed me to withdraw more energy from it. I like this. I like the mentality he has behind here because it matches so well what we've been doing here on Johnny the Journey Radio. First of all, I mean this thing about you've got to think differently totally resonates with me. I I've been saying this since 2014. We need to think in new and different ways. And it's not just a matter of working harder, it's about working smarter, right? And working smarter means thinking smarter, learning to think in new and different ways. Um, I also like how, he's taken this life model that we've been given, at least, in American culture, and probably throughout the Western world as well, that, you know, you're supposed to spend your life working in some career, and then when you're old and feeble, then you retire, and you have the golden years where you get to enjoy life. And the description he gives here is like he's not waiting. He's not waiting for that. He's enjoying life now. And I thought, I love that attitude. First of all, you know, for me, my own life personally, it's like I don't want to wait until um, I'm old and crippled and I can't get out of bed before I start enjoying my life. I want to enjoy my life now. So, let's dig in and find out more about how he actually accomplishes this. We've subconsciously slipped into a pit of deception. The more I work, the more productive my business will be. On the surface, this makes sense. Work hard, stay ahead. That's the enticing part, the reason we get tricked. But over time, a hard work ethic can lead entrepreneurs to believe one thing. Oh man, another typo. More input, more output. Simple busyness can't be the secret ingredient to business success. A hamster on a wheel is awfully busy. So is a dog digging a hole. I can think of more than one entrepreneur who spends hours a day running errands, being interrupted by team members, processing emails. They're certainly busy all day, but there's not a lot getting done. Even efficiently staying busy isn't the answer. Most entrepreneurs are extremely efficient. They can eliminate task after task faster than anyone else. They can make the calls, send the emails, seal the deals. Overall, they can make it happen. But efficient busyness on the wrong tasks simply creates a faster streamline to a bad situation. The little known secret to reaching the next stage of your business is spending your time on only the tasks that A, you excel at, B, you truly enjoy, and C, add the highest value, usually in the form of revenue to your business. Likely two or three tasks fit that description. Every other task you're handling is slowing your growth and sucking the life from you, and you should clear it from your calendar. Here we start getting into the actual philosophical foundation behind his method. So essentially, you are going to buy back your time, but you're buying back your time with specific intention in mind, right? So that you can actually do these things here that he says you excel at, you truly enjoy, and add the highest value. In other words, you're doing things that light you up, that make you feel alive, and you're spending most of your time there in that section. And all the other stuff that doesn't light you up but still needs to get done, you're paying somebody else to do those things. Um, and that's where he says every other task you're handling is slowing your growth and sucking the life from you. You should clear it from your calendar. All these things you're doing that you have to do but that don't light you up, you need to figure out a way to outsource that because the more time you spend doing things you don't really want to do, that's energy you're devoting to something that is not really aligned with your true purpose and your true place in the overall scheme of things. So, yeah, lots of us are busy, uh, but it's not just being busy. It's not just working harder. And like he says, initially on the start, you would think that working harder would, you put more in, you get more out. A lot of us take that same approach towards singles life, quite frankly. I mean, how many of us have actually put more into, finding an eternal companion? And, the stories I hear from people that do that time and time again, it's like they don't get anything out of it, you know? I know that from my own personal experience, I gave up a good paying job in the middle of a recession so I could move across the country and be in, one of these mid-singles wards with the intention of, being around possibility of making a sacred covenant with my Heavenly Father. And what did all my sacrifice come to in the end? Nothing. Nothing. In fact, most of the people in that mid-singles ward basically shut me out. Um, and I had a really tough time being there. And it just, at the end of it all, it was just, um, it was an experience that left me scarred and just let me. There were a lot of bad things that came out of it. I'll just leave it at that for now. We might come back and talk about that later, but yeah. Um, so yeah, what you want to do is spend your time doing things that light you up, and he gets to that a little bit later here. So he says the buyback principle means you should continually use every resource you can to buy back your time. Then fill that extra time with activities that light you up with energy and make you more money. Notice the emphasis isn't simply on hiring, but on hiring with a purpose, reinvestment. With that in mind, here's how I formally define this whole concept, the buyback principle. Don't hire to grow your business, hire to buy back your time. This concept will not only grant you more financial success than you thought possible, but with it, you'll also be able to craft a life you originally envisioned when you became an entrepreneur. You'll learn how to use this principle to buy back additional time in your calendar to focus on what makes you money and lights you up. And then a wonderful cycle begins. As your company makes more money, you buy back even more time. The result, you'll be happier and you can continually upgrade your time and buy back more freedom. As people pay you to do what you love, your energy goes up and you make more money, redepositing it back into what you're excellent at. Your business grows. As you'll find out in the book, you can keep hiring out those additional pieces that are must-dos, but not for you to do. Administrative work, customer delivery, follow-up, even sales. As more work comes in and you stay focused on what you enjoy, your business will pull in more revenue. The oh, I got so many typos in this thing. This was the best. The butt back principle. Well, on the keyboard, Y and T are next to each other, so I love the butt back principle. The pie. Sorry, I can't go on. This is too much. Ah. Okay. The the ah, ah, ah. We're living the joy here on JJRadio. All right. The buyback principle means that entrepreneurs shouldn't be checking email unless they want to. The buyback principle means you excel at a few tasks and you're mediocre at best at the others. The buyback principle means that when you're choosing what to do today, you should be selecting the highest value tasks. If you don't believe me, I get it. Most entrepreneurs don't until they tried it. Again, he wrote this book initially for entrepreneurs. So, of course, he's talking about, hiring people. And, one of the things he goes over in the book, as you saw here with this quote, is that when you're hiring people, you don't hire someone just to fill a job. You're hiring somebody who, gets really lit up by the things that you don't light you up. You're hiring people to do the things that shouldn't be on your calendar because they don't light you up. And they're not like things that you really like excel at. So you want to hire people who excel at those things that you don't need to be doing. They need to be done, just not by you. And so you hire people who get lit up by those things, who are really excellent at those things, right? And then you take the time that saves you, right? Because you're not doing those things now, and you fill your time with more of what lights you up, right? You put that more into your business. As a result, your business grows, so his theory goes. And I say so his theory goes because I think there's more to it than that. I mean, I know from personal experience, the more you put into your business, does not necessarily mean your business is going to grow. But I digress. Your business grows, and then you make more money, and then you've got, you just repeat the cycle, right? You can hire more people to do things that shouldn't be on your calendar, and these things that shouldn't be on your calendar light up the people that you're hiring. You're not hiring to get a job done. You're hiring to free up your calendar so you can fill it with things that light you up, right? So applying this to LDS singles life, I think if we want a life that's thriving, we take the same principle, right? We look at the things that we need to do that don't really light us up, and we think, how can I offshore this, right? But we're not offshoring it just to get something done and taken care of. We're offshoring it to people who actually get lit up by the things that shouldn't be on our calendar, things that need to be done, just not by us. Stretch the mind, stretch the mind. And think about this. I think it's a fantastic concept, right? It's like you can have more time to do the things that really light you up, and then you have more energy to apply to the things that already light you up. And just think about like how wonderful a life it would be if you could just live that way. Here's the next quote. Simple audit transfer fill methodology. So this is what, he's talking about, like when you buy back your time. You audit your time and energy to see what you need to keep and what you need to get rid of, right? The things that you need to get rid of, you transfer those to other people, and then the space that's left, you fill that up with things that light you up. Audit, transfer, fill. The simple audit transfer fill methodology creates an infinite cycle so you can continually upgrade your time throughout your entrepreneurial journey. I'll never disparage hard work or tell any entrepreneur that work ethic isn't a key component in success. You'd laugh at me. But I will say that you've got to couple a great work ethic with buying back your time. Here's how to start thinking this way. Audit. What tasks do I hate doing that are easy and inexpensive to offer someone else? Transfer. Who do I have on my team or who can I hire, even part-time, to take these over? Fill. What tasks should I focus on that I love doing that can immediately bring more money to my company? I think that's pretty I think that's pretty self-explanatory. So, thinking about, again, the application to LDS singles life, you know, audit. What tasks do I hate doing that are easy and inexpensive to offer someone else? Right? Think about like, your own personal life and who could you actually who could you actually give that to? Right? Which is the next step, transfer. Like who could you get that? I mean, you don't have to hire someone full time. Um, you know, here he brings up the idea of hiring someone part time. You're just looking for someone to just handle a few tasks. Um, I've actually thought about, do I say this or not? Yeah. I've actually thought about like, applying this method to building Join the Journey Radio, right? Like hiring people to do things that need to be done, but that they don't necessarily light me up, but they need to be done. Um, I've also thought about, bringing in people to actually come on the program, but I'm not at that point yet, right? Because I mean, you got to understand, like in the back of our minds, you're going through this. And I'm talking about offshoring tasks and paying people to do stuff you don't want to do, but need to get done. You got to be thinking, like, well, that takes money. I don't have any money. Um, it's not entirely true for most of us. For some of us, for some of us, granted, it may be, right? Like you're in like the bottom income brackets, or you're living in a country where it's just widespread poverty everywhere. Then you probably don't have a lot of money. But the rest of us, mm, yeah, I mean, when I was growing up, my mother always had that attitude of, we can't afford it. We can't afford it. And truth of the matter is, we could actually have afforded a lot that we just didn't have because my mother was always adamant, we can't afford it, we can't afford it, we can't afford it. Um, so I grew up poor by compulsion. uh, I grew up poor by compulsion. And even today, I'm poor. I mean, good grief, I'm a PhD student. How much money do you think I'm making now? Oh, of course, that's all in the hope of making more later, but that is yet to be seen. So there are ways to make this happen. And he goes over that in the book. And I have some quotes about that. I don't know if that's the next one or not. Let's find out. We all have our own areas that we not only excel in, but that we love and make us the most money. It doesn't make sense for a world class wedding photographer to spend hours invoicing clients, or for a top notch financial analyst to spend hours a week planning their own travel. Instead, these people would make more money and be far happier by finding someone else to do those tasks. The beauty is, genius zones change from person to person. Remember that, oh gosh, another typo. Remember that class you hated as a kid? For some, it was biology. For me, it was math. I hated math. Every second there sucked the life out of me. On the other hand, we all had that one class that lit us up. In that class, time flew by. Mine was art class. Every moment spent at the drawing table boosted my motivation and energy to create. One minute I was taking out my pencil, and the next the bell was ringing, forcing me to stop. One could barely call it schoolwork for me. It was playtime. Which class do you think I did better in, math or art? Bingo! Research backs this up. A study by Columbia and Harvard showed passion combined with perseverance predicts higher educational scores. Researchers studied thousands of GPAs and what work students were most excited to perform. Their findings were simple. The more students enjoyed something, the better they performed. While perseverance was key in their findings, they noted that perseverance without passion isn't grit, but merely a grind. When we apply this to entrepreneurship, we find an interesting correlation. It's obvious, but we too often forget it. Our passion is where our marketplace value lies. The more we give ourselves permission to clear our calendar to invest in projects that light us up, the more our business will grow. We just need to learn how to get unstuck from the day-to-day work without having the wheels fly off. So I'm looking at this and thinking to myself, this is direct application to something that we've long talked about here on the program, which is a personal ministry. Latter-day Saint singles need to adopt a personal ministry, some area of contribution by which you give of your unique talents and yourself to something that will make the world a better place and will actually help people in some way. You're making a contribution. Now, if you could actually choose, like he says here, take this concept that he's taking here about entrepreneurship and apply it to a personal ministry. If if a Latter-day Saint single could actually select a personal ministry, that just lights him or her up, something that just gives them energy by, you engage in it and it gives you more energy and it just makes you just want to just go and do more. Um, if you could apply yourself there, how much joy would you have in your journey? How much would you be thriving in your single years? I think we need to really consider, like, it's because I've heard this said before. It's like, well, singles need to fill their time with, useful things. Um, and I would say yes, but that's only half of it. It's not just filling your time with useful things, it's filling your time with something that makes a difference, makes a contribution to the lives of other people. And if we're going to take what we learn here from Dan Martell in his book, I would just add one more little notch to that, and that is it should be something that lights you up. Because the more you spend your time in this area doing things that light you up, the more energy you're going to have, the more joy you're going to have, just the more overall happy you're going to be. And you put your focus there. And as we've said before, time and time again on this program, your focus creates your reality. Your focus determines your reality. So if your focus is on making a contribution that's uniquely yours to make other people's lives better, and your focus is there, what do you think your reality is going to be? It's going to be fantastic. It's going to be stupendous. So, you know, I really think we just need to take a step back and just really think about this. Really think about this. If you don't have a personal ministry, I highly recommend you take a step back and you think about that idea and what it has to offer you in your life. Okay, so next quote here. The Pareto effect suggests 80% of all results come from 20% of activity. The accepted 95-5 rule makes the numbers even more dramatic for entrepreneurs, suggesting that only 5% of everything you're doing is driving 95% of your company's returns. That means if you spend 10 hours at work today answering emails, making calls, talking to employees, going to meetings, developing content, only 30 minutes of what you're doing is driving tangible results in your business. What's worse, as the Columbia and Harvard study showed, is when you don't enjoy something, you're also not as good at it. In other words, while you think you're sacrificing for a worthy cause by working hard at things that challenge you, you're actually costing your company. It's a lose-lose move. I know because I've been there. Think of every task as sitting on two continuums, one of energy, one of money. Every task is sucking some amount of energy from you on one end or lighting you up with lots more energy on the other end. Meanwhile, that same task makes you somewhere between no money and lots of it. When the overwhelming majority of your tasks are in the bottom left corner, making you little money and sucking lots of energy, then you're living a pretty chaotic lifestyle. Until Oprah discovered her biggest value to her audience, explaining human interest stories, she spent her time in the news. There, she felt like she was exploiting her audience, not serving them. She made less money and simultaneously disliked her job. It wasn't until she realized her gift, shining a light on other people by interviewing them and sharing their genius with the world, that her whole financial world exploded. You'll find the same is true in other highly successful people's lives, regardless of field or industry. It's easy to think they're lucky or they're privileged, but the truth is they built their lives following the buyback loop, investing time where it matters most and reaping the rewards. Tom Clancy, Warren Buffett, Oprah Winfrey, Andy Warhol, and thousands of others have all learned how to effectively focus their time and energy where it counted the most. This unlocked immense value for themselves, freed up their time, and injected their lives with joy. As a result, they made more money, which allowed them to buy back more time. With that additional time, they made sure to deposit it in places that lit them up and made more money. To me, successful people aren't doing what they love because they're rich. They're rich because they've learned to do what they love and only what they love. Too many entrepreneurs get this backward. They think that an enjoyable life is only for those who've earned their way there. So they grind, take another bite out of get stuff done mentality. If that's you, you'll never get to Oprah's status until you bust out of that mindset. You only get to Oprah's level by starting to act like Oprah today. You may not have her money yet, but you have some amount that you can spend to offload the most time-sucking, energy-draining tasks. You start by changing your mindset and looking for ways to audit your time to find time and energy-sucking tasks that others can do. Reinvest that time in money-making initiatives and activities. Set aside time to grow your business. Invest only in tasks that make you the most money and light you up. Again, he's writing this for, a bunch of entrepreneurs and people that are, starting and running businesses. I think to apply this to a singles life, it's plain as day. It's what you see right here on the screen, right? You audit your time to find the things that are just sucking the life out of you, right? And you reinvest that time by, finding people to do those things for you, right? Reinvest that time in money-making initiatives and activities. So in other words, you're you're reinvesting that time by offering more value to other people. That's how I would apply it to the personal life. Set aside time to grow your business. Set aside time to work on your personal ministry. Set aside time to realize, okay, and make plans for how it is you're going to make this contribution. First of all, decide what that contribution is going to be, and then decide, okay, what can I contribute to that? Invest only in tasks that make you the most money and light you up. In other words, you start focusing more and more on putting in your calendar only those things that offer you the most value and that light you up. Seems pretty straightforward idea, and yet I don't know that a lot of us are doing it. I think a lot of us are just caught up in the busyness of life, and we're wondering, it's like, well, how can I even begin to work with this? Because I've got so many things on my plate, I have no time to stop and think about this stuff. And believe me, I've been there in my own life. I've been there in my own life, and in those moments, you know, I I realize that there has to be some moment where you just stop and you just say, I've just got to reset, because that's really no way to that's really no way to live life. I, I highly recommend that you try to find some way out. Um, and it may just be as simple as, finding someone to talk to about it. Find someone that you trust that you can talk to about it. Um, you know, um, Certainly I would recommend, as far as like a general piece of advice, go talk to your bishop. Go talk to your bishop. Um, Call up the executive secretary in your ward and say, hey, I'd like to set up an appointment to talk to the bishop, and then just talk to him about all the stuff you got going on. Maybe some of the offshoring that gets done in your life is not going to be from you paying somebody to do it. It's going to be the ward council marshaling resources to help you. I mean, we need to expand our minds into thinking about, different ways to make things happen and start focusing on possibilities instead of just focusing on the limitation and the challenge and the boundaries that imposes on us. Focus on what can we do within those boundaries to break out of the boundary. And that's a much more positive approach to life in general, not just LDS singles life. Okay, so he goes on further and talks more about limiting beliefs, um, and I really love what he says, because again, a lot of what we talk about here on the program is about needing to think in new and different ways, and part of that is questioning the assumptions that underlie your thinking. So let's dig into this. Let's break these limiting beliefs right now. We'll start with no one does it right. Okay, so in other words, he's trying to answer the objection that people don't want to offshore the tasks that they have because, um, you know, someone else could do it, but they won't get it done right. He says, to be honest, likely no one will care as much as you do because it's not their company, their money, or really their customers. Maybe no one will ever do it quite like you. So here's what you do. You don't aim for 100% perfection. Instead, shoot for 80%. Yes, lower your expectations, because here's the deal. 80% done by someone else is 100% freaking awesome. You not having to come in on the weekend to get caught up is 100% freaking awesome. You not having to miss your kid's game or a friend's birthday party is 100% freaking awesome. You not having to spend half your week doing something you hate for the 100th time is 100% freaking awesome. So that's why you need to set your bar at 80% done. If there's draining work on your to-do list and someone else can get it done 80% of the way and do it for the right price, which we will get into, then you should transfer that task. That's how you'll get back to your production quadrant. And the production quadrant is, like he was saying before, it's like everything has, there's two spectrums. There's one on money and there's one on time. And so when you do your audit, it's like you've got things that, are low on the money, low on the time, high on the money, low on the time, low on the money, high on the time, high on the time, high on the money. And so that production quadrant is things that, you know, you really should be spending your time on and bring the most value in. As a bonus, when you really get the hang of hiring correctly, you'll be hiring people to take on tasks that live inside their production quadrants, meaning everyone is executing on tasks that they enjoy performing and make them money. Sometimes you'll surprise yourself, and they'll not only be 80% as good as you are, they'll be even better. When you transfer what you dislike doing and take on more of what you enjoy that makes you money, you immediately set yourself up to increase your revenue, allowing you to offload even more of what you dislike. Over time, you continually push yourself up and to, oh gosh, another typo, right of the quadrant in an infinite spiral upward. So, just looking back at what he's saying here, like if I go back here, I mean, yes, he's talking here about, you know, it doesn't matter if they won't do the job as good as you do, right? You only want 80%, right? Because you not having to do tasks that you shouldn't do is 100% freaking awesome. So he says, shoot for the bar at 80%, lower your expectations. And I thought, wow, what a lesson for LDS singles. What if we applied that concept to dating? Too many of us are looking for someone who has 100% of the items on our list, which, by the way, many of the lists that we have, many of us have lists that are way too long to begin with. So, the focus is on perfection. We got to find someone who's got every single item on this list. And what we really need to be doing is looking for 80%. In other words, we're just looking for good enough. Just look for good enough, right? The rest you can fill in along the way, assuming that it's still that important, right? You may find that, some of that 20% that you drop really shouldn't have been kept anyway. Maybe it was something that needed to be dropped, and you won't see that until after the effect. I think too many of us are just we're wanting too much in terms of perfection, and we need to loosen up. Now, again, you know, setting your sights on 80% is some would call that, well, you're settling. You're settling, you know. And I can see I'm going to get a lot of resistance on that idea from the ladies because, the way the female mind works, the conclusion they're going to come to is, well, if I do that, then, there's a good chance that I'm not going to feel what I want to feel. And of course, the way women are biologically predetermined to make decisions, they'll want to push that away, right? They'll want to reject that idea. And let me just caution you about doing that. Um, this actually makes good rational sense when you think about it. Um, when you apply intellectual logic to it, um, there's a case to be made for accepting it. Um, and, this idea that you're not going to feel what you want to feel isn't entirely correct because you're simply basing that off of very limited data that you're receiving in this one moment in time. Over the, weeks, months, years, decades to come, you're going to get a lot more data that's going to lead you to a much different conclusion. Or let me say, has a high probability of leading you to a more true conclusion. Let's think probabilistically here, because that's really what the world is. The world's more probabilistic than it is deterministic. There's always a chance that something else could happen that we don't anticipate. I know from my own life, I mean, the life I'm living now, if you would have asked me, 30 years ago, hey, is this what it's going to be 30 years from now? I'd be like, no. I would have laughed you. I would just laughed at you so hard. And yet the reality is, yep, yep, something very, very different than what I imagined it would be. So, yeah. hmm Um, think about this idea. You just need 80%, right? 80% can get you there. Um, I don't think a lot of us are actually thinking about that idea as much. And oh my gosh, I just noticed another typo. See right there on the other page, you immediately set yourself. What is yourself? Oh, I really gotta, I really gotta do a better job of going through this stuff. Um, what was I saying? Oh yeah, so you know, find these things that don't actually fit in, and put them off on somebody else. Give them to somebody else to do. Right? They need to get done, and don't worry about it not being done super right. Let go of that perfectionist mentality and just settle with the 80%. And you'll find that, in the long run, most things just don't matter as much as we think they do. And that's not just true for what he's saying here. I think that's also true in dating. Most of the things that we think are important, a lot of those things really aren't important. Not in the long run, certainly not in eternity. Now, let's deal with objection two. I can't afford it. See, I mentioned this before. Like he's going to get into this whole thing about um, it's like, well, I have no money to do this. You think if you gotta pay someone to do, what you need to do, but don't like doing, and you have no money for it. It's like, I can't afford it. Here's what he says. The first thing everyone does is say they can't afford anything. I disagree. Everyone can afford something. Entrepreneurs can get fuzzy on how much their time's worth. Let me make it easy for you. Your time is worth how much your business pays you divided by 2,000 hours. As you probably know, 2,000 hours is a normal work year, right? So, I mean, if you take, standard is 2 weeks vacation for the 52 years, 50, 52 weeks in a year. So that's 50 weeks a year you're working. And a standard work week is 40 hours. So 40 hours times 50 weeks is that's your 2,000 hours, right? Um, yes, I know you're probably grinding out more hours than that, but this is a rough estimate to help you get started. When I say pays you, I mean all the profits from your current business, including your salary, discretionary expenses, wink, wink, plus any other profits of the business after all expenses are paid. If your company pays you $1 million a year, then you make $500 per hour. If your company pays you $100,000 a year, you make $50 per hour. If you take in $24,000 a year, then you make $12 per hour. Until you learn to buy back your time from the low value tasks and start focusing on the high value ones, you won't be able to build the life you want. Learning how to make these trades is the game. So that's how much your company is currently paying you. Now, how much can you afford to pay someone else? My rule of thumb is that no one, not a founder, not an administrative assistant, not a baseball player, not a barista, should be performing a work task that they could outsource for one fourth, in essence 25%, of their current effective hourly rate. So if your effective hourly rate is $100 an hour, then your buyback rate is $25 an hour. Some of you may be running into the issue that you already spend all the money you pay yourself, so you don't have anything left over. Well, that's the issue. Instead of leasing that new premium car, why not buy used and invest in a great executive assistant and work to trade that free time into the ability to get that brand new car from the increase in profits? Everyone has a buyback rate. Even if you currently take in only $50,000 a year from your company, your buyback rate is approximately $6.25 per hour. Even if that's all you can afford right now, you still may be able to provide a useful job for someone. Other times, there are ways to get things done for free. Interns are a great source of talent that come with low cost. In the early days of building my company, I would use students from the local college. It helped them gain experience, it helped me buy back my time. Did you know you can hire web developers, administrative assistants, and social media experts in other parts of the world for less than $6 per hour? Search online and you'll find many sites like Upwork that help you review, vet, and hire top talent at affordable rates. Throughout this book, I'm going to show you how to constantly increase your buyback rate so you can buy back more and more time. When you have more money, you buy back more, gosh, typos. buy back more time and deposit all that extra time into your production quadrant where people pay you insane money. So the more money you make, the higher your buyback rate. Keep working to increase it. Turn it into a game. When you find those few tasks that light you up, that make you money, why not put all your tasks there? I'm reading through this and this just makes total sense to me, right? Now, the application to LDS Singles Life. Let's back up here and look, say everyone has a buyback rate. Like everyone can afford something, right? Look at his attitude here, right? Where he's taking these like he's not looking at the world through rose-colored lenses. He's not, saying everything is all, peaches and cream. He's recognizing reality. He's recognizing that there are limitations, but he's trying to find creative ways to work within those limitations to break through past those limitations. And I think, excuse me, I think a lot of us who are living the LDS singles life can benefit from that same attitude, right? Think about the limitations that you have in your life as a Latter-day Saint single. And are there creative ways that you can think of to get around those restrictions, to break free from those restrictions? I think this attitude, merits some real consideration, right? So here he's talking about, why don't you take what you're doing and just, find different ways to do the same thing, instead of leasing a new premium car, get rid of the premium car, buy a used car, and then use the difference to get somebody who will actually free up your time so that you can spend more time in the stuff that actually can help you make more money, and then you can use that money to buy the brand new car. Um, so thinking about like, are there things that we can change in the way that we're approaching LDS singles life where we could actually downscale what we do, right? So that we actually free ourselves up to put ourselves in a position to where we're spending more of our time with things that light us up. I love the way he's just being creative and expanding the mind and looking for possibilities. Too many of us, we don't look for possibilities. We just see the limitation and we give up, right? I think there's something to be said here for, as in the sing along that we had not too long ago, never surrender. Never surrender. We were singing that classic song from the 80s by Corey Hart. Never surrender. I love that he's got that attitude right here, right? Everyone has a buyback rate. Even if you currently take in only 50 grand a year, your buyback rate is 625. Because if you take the 50,000, right, divide by 2,000 to get your hourly rate, then divide by 4 to get the buyback rate, that leaves you the 625, right? If that's all you can afford, wait, first of all, I mean, I know a lot of us would look at 625 and think, well, I'm not hiring anybody because I mean, minimum wage in every state, federal minimum wage is, higher than 625 right now, and I don't see that ever coming down. And then there are other states that have, state mandated minimum wages, so it's even higher than the federal rate. So, you could be looking at that and saying, focused on the limitation and say, well, and he recognizes it, right? He's not going to hire somebody generally for 625 an hour because I mean, if you're paying them, you got to pay them more. I mean, that's federal law, right? But there are other ways to get things done for free. So he's thinking like, post a volunteer opportunity for an intern with the local college. I mean, what a creative idea to get around the limitation of not having enough to meet the federal minimum wage restriction. And then he talks about, here going and looking at a different part of the world, right? 625 won't buy you much in the United States, but 625 can, in other parts of the world, can buy you quite a bit. So yeah, I mean, just start trying to expand the mind and just think to yourself, well, applying this to LDS singles life, are there creative solutions to our problems that allow us to work within the boundaries that are restricting us? And, we can, you know, find ways to devote our time to things that light us up. So that we have the creativity and the energy to find avenues that can actually break out of the limitations that we find ourselves in because of it's just the nature of singles life, right? How could we break out of that? I just love the attitude of um, the creativity, the initiative, um, the attitude of never surrender, always be looking for options, and the options are there, and we just need to go out and find them. I just love that. Okay, so throughout the book, he talks about, he brings in different case studies. So, examples from the lives of real people as he's learning the principles and applying them. And so, one such book is this guy named Tom. By the time I met Tom in 2018, he was running a moderately successful business. He was making money, but he was also self medicating. He was stuck in a binge cycle he'd picked up in his high school days. Beginning on Thursday or Friday, he'd start drinking until Sunday night, just in time so he could stagger into work on Monday still a bit drunk. He'd sober up for a few days, then start the cycle over again. As you can imagine, his assassin, in other words, the assassin on his time and energy, was ruining his relationships. Once he noticed his 10-year-old daughter chugging soda in the same manner he chugged alcohol. Isn't it interesting how observant children are? She mentioned how fun her dad was when he drank, and she wanted to be just like him. That stung. A key turning point happened when Tom got real with himself. In one of our boardroom meetings, which are my group sessions I host with my clients, Tom shared his struggle with alcohol. It turns out Tom wasn't alone. It was shocking, he told me later, but I was no different than anyone else in the group. Everyone had issues they dealt with, some with drinking, others with other issues. After that vulnerable meeting, Tom started 75 Hard, an insanely difficult health and exercise program, something he'd tried before. But this time, Tom finished 75 Hard, and his life changed forever. These days, Tom is one of the most disciplined, another freaking typo, people you can imagine. He wakes up at 5 a.m. every day, and he's lost almost 50 pounds, and his business is going to hit 15 million. But to Tom, perhaps the best accomplishment is that he can proudly and truthfully say this: now I can go to a party and I don't even think about a drink or wanting to drink. Feeling free is an understatement. Were there ups and downs in Tom's journey? You betcha. But he's free today, all because he decided to face the mirror and get real with his pain. Today, I want you to do the same. Get real with what's eating you. It may not be as big as Tom's demon, but my guess is there's something that's coming for you. Find it and get real. And nothing can hold you back. Your relationships, your health, your business will all benefit from you dealing with your own assassin. When I read this in the book, I couldn't help but think about, this has probably the most direct application to Elias Single's life of anything I'm going to share with you from the book. How many of us have ups and downs in our journey as Larry St. Singles, right? And yet, the freedom to experience maximum joy in our life comes when we decide to face the mirror and get real. Get real with what's going on in our lives and just start owning our lives, right? Just instead of just playing the victim and letting whatever is holding us back hold us back, get real with it. Face it. Um, do what you need to do to stand up and say, no, this is my life, and I'm going to choose what happens. Now, I know other people are going to make choices, and some of those choices are not going to be choices you would have them make. But, you know, when you step back and you see the forest from the trees, um, you have to admit that that's just a small part of what life can be. Notice I didn't say what life is or has been. We've all got different experiences. And a lot of that, what we experience, depends upon the things that we focus on. So I know, if you were to talk to me, back when I was in my 20s and I was afflicted with a victim mentality, you would tell me like, yeah, you man, you need to get real. And, I'd be like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? These people making decisions against me and I'm powerless. You know, I, I would have found it really difficult to believe the truth that I really did have more influence over what was going on in my life than what I thought at the time. But the reality is, God didn't put us on this world to be powerless. He put us here to be powerful. And that power comes as you embrace truth and gain the freedom to realize that power and to exercise that power. I've said it once and I'll say it again. Agency is the second most underrated and underappreciated gift of God to his children because with agency comes the power to determine for ourselves. And I get it. Um, some people are going to put things in our lives that we just don't want to deal with. And no amount of wishing is going to make those things go away. You know, at the same time, I would urge you to, incorporate what we were talking about just a moment ago about being creative and innovative and say, okay, let's focus not on the limitation. Let's focus on what we can do within the bounds of that limitation to find a way to break through the limitation. You know, and I love what he says here. Get real with what's eating you. Um, find it and get real. Then nothing can hold you back. Your relationships, your health, and your business will all benefit from you dealing with your own assassin. Quit running away from the thing that you don't want to deal with and just do it, right? Like, do a Spencer W. Kimball, right? Do it right now. Uh, I know I'm dating myself with that, but those of you who remember Spencer W. Kimball, I mean that's a quote from him, right? Do it right, do it right now, right? I think a lot of us need to take that attitude and apply it to our own lives as LDS singles, and there's a lot of freedom and liberation and power and joy that can be found in our lives when we do that. Okay, so here's the next quote. I wasn't a genius. I didn't have a baked concept like don't hire to grow your business, hire to buy back your time. But I had determined that I needed more time to spend on my business. I looked around at what was taking up precious minutes on the clock. He's doing an audit, and you know what I came up with? Cleaning and laundry. I also didn't really love doing either. Well, it felt a little odd. I first started buying back my time by having someone clean my townhouse and paying the wash and fold to do my laundry. I ended up with a couple of extra hours back in my day. And that's when it dawned on me. Too many of us are looking at companies in terms of roles, organizational charts, and whose job is whose. Instead, we need to be looking at the one asset none of us can create more of: time. As soon as I started thinking in terms of trading my money for more time, I started seeing the opportunity to make those trades everywhere. I could spend 10 hours coding, or I could pay someone to code and spend 10 hours building my business. I could build my website or pay a website developer who's better than I am to do it, then take that extra time and spend it with my kids. But it all started with cleaning, washing, and folding. Looking back, I also understand my decisions directly and positively affected others. A house cleaner had a new customer, and a wash and fold had a new client. By extension, they could redeploy their money to buy back their time with the increased income. That's the beauty of the buyback principle in action. It has an exponential ripple effect across the pond. Once you start grasping the power of the buyback principle, you'll see opportunity everywhere in yard work, in people management, in administration, in simple tasks, in complex projects. Is it a little odd to pay someone to check your mail? Maybe, but that's another lesson the buyback principle has taught me. You've got to get vulnerable with people. I don't know much about dating advice. Oh, talk about application here. But I've heard that love experts talk a lot about opening up to others. That's actually pretty good advice for business, too. For instance, I've taken this buyback thing to another level, and now I have what I call a house manager. Like the name sounds, she's the administrator of my home. She manages everything under my roof. She washes cars, fills up the gas tank, picks up the kids from school, and a list of other tasks. Her position holds the same purpose as my administrative assistant. My house manager is there to buy back my time. Nowadays, I try to do only one of two things: spend time with people I love or create within businesses. That's it. Letting someone support you in business is one thing, but in your personal life, most people think, forget it. Having someone in my home feels invasive. Others will think I'm a snob if I pay someone to clean. I can manage all this on my own. After all, it's my personal responsibility. I've heard all these excuses, but what we don't realize is that when we don't pay someone else to do something we could afford to pay them to do, we're robbing them of a paycheck. Why be so selfish? Don't get me wrong, I understand how chores build personal responsibility. That's why my house manager, Betty, isn't allowed to clean up after my two sons. She doesn't work for them, she works for me. My children need to learn about personal responsibility. I've learned that lesson by now, and my guess is you have too. Plus, let me tell you, having a house manager is really, really cool. Every day at 4 p.m., Betty hands me a protein shake in my home office. There's no space there between the A and protein. Another freaking typo. Ugh! I look up with a smile and tell her thank you because my mid-afternoon, I by mid-afternoon, my gosh, another room there. I'm gonna go crazy with the typos. Because my mid-afternoon, I'm getting hungry. Oh, hangry. That's actually not a typo. I remember that word is in the book. I'm getting hangry with all my meetings and hectic schedule. Oftentimes, I'm on a conference call hustling a multi-million-dollar deal, so I see her sneak in. I stick out my hand without even looking, and Betty passes the shake straight into my hand because she knows my routine. That's the sort of routine you can create with a house manager. Knowing that I won't need to stop and feed my belly in the last hour of my workday saves me headspace and time. Betty follows other simple rules as well. For instance, another typo. At the edge of my bed every night, I find a fresh bottle of water waiting for me. I haven't filled up my own car with gas or even cleaned it in years. Betty also makes our lives amazing when my family travels. She'll fly ahead of us to get everything set up so we don't skip a beat, and she has the playbooks for how things should be organized. I think of my home the same way I think about my business. Spending time filling up my car with gas is time I could be spending with my kids. Cleaning my home is time I could have spent on my business. Paying bills is time I could have spent with my wife. With a house manager, I'm able to opt for the best option. Maybe you're not at this point in your journey, and this sounds far fetched. You don't need to start with a house manager, but let me tell you, ending up there will save you a lot of time. Just look around at the opportunities to start buying back your time today. Consider cleaning, taking care of your car, food preparation, yard work, etc. These are time consuming tasks that you could likely transfer fairly inexpensively. So, there's a couple of things here about this particular excerpt that I like. First, there's the obvious, um, parallel he made with, dating, opening up. I think a lot of us, hmm, how should I say this? A lot of us have been hurt. We've had to endure some painful experiences, and we don't want to endure the pain again. And so it's natural for us to hesitate. It's natural for us to build a wall. It's natural for us to close ourselves off. But The love that you really yearn for in your life will never come to you if you're closed. You have to open up. You have to open up. And you have to risk getting hurt again. And while that may be hard to accept, it's no less true. So, again, going back to what we were saying earlier about finding your demon and, just facing in the mirror whatever it is that's gonna, assassinate your success. Yeah, I mean, find a way to deal with this and take care of it. And again, maybe the thing to do, like I was saying before, is maybe you gotta call it, talk to your bishop. Maybe that's the thing you need to do. Set up an appointment with the executive secretary and, you know, have an appointment and talk it out with your bishop. Seek inspiration from your priesthood leader. That's part of what being a judge in Israel is all about. Um, so that's the one thing I liked about this second. The other thing I like is just what you see here at the end, right? It's like we need to be in the place where we are. Like everything we've been talking about, with this book is really like on a super high level because you're talking about a guy who's gone through this process of building, 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 and then he's here at this very top level, looking down, saying, "Wow, my life is so cool," and you don't just jump there overnight, right? You need to be in the place where you are, and a lot of us LDS singles, I think, we become our own worst enemy. We put the cart before the horse, right? We're so excited to get to the end of the journey that we start living in a place where we're not. And that just confuses everything and that bungs up the whole journey. So, the way to have more joy in your journey is to be in the place where you are. And if you're not at that level yet, that's okay. Start small. I remember, my first encounter with pulmonary embolism, happened a couple years when I had surgery. And longtime listeners will know about this. But initially, you know, the recovery plan that I came up with for dealing with my pulmonary embolism was I got to get more movement because one of the things that set me up to get pulmonary embolism was just being sedentary all day. Right? I mean, all my work's done on a computer, so I just sit at my desk and just stare at a screen all day. I mean, that's an oversimplification, a really gross oversimplification of what I do. But fundamentally, that's what it is. So, that kind of set things up. Oh, wait, I accidentally punched a button. So, yeah, that just kind of set me up for it, right? So, of course, the way to treat that is to just do the opposite. To be sedentary, you got to get more movement in your life, right? And so, more movement means you got to get up and move around a lot more. Um, and so, because I had the pulmonary embolism, right? I mean, it actually restricted how much I could actually do at one time. At the very beginning of this recovery period, I kid you not, I could not walk for more than, 2 or 3 minutes at a time. So when I started out with a goal of walking for 5 minutes straight, and that was really hard for me to do because that's the place where I was, right? But because that's the place where I was, that's where I focused on being. I didn't try to walk a half hour when all I could do was, just, it was everything I could do just to pull out 5 minutes. So I just focused on the 5 minutes, right? And eventually my ability to do the 5 minutes increased so that the 5 minutes became easier and easier. And eventually I worked my way up to 6 minutes, and then seven, and then eight, and then nine, and just slowly, with that accumulation of small gains, worked my way up to where I was walking a half hour every day, right? And it took a while it took months for me to get up to that level. But, the change that I saw in myself and in my body, I got rid of the pulmonary embolism. Now, it came back last year. I think partly because I slipped back into some of those old sedentary habits that I had. So, you know, you don't want to be looking in the place where you're not. Be in the place where you are, right? What he says here, just start looking around at opportunities to start buying back your time. Just consider what you can do, focusing on what you can do instead of focusing on what you can't. If you're looking at this huge vision and this guy standing at the top saying, "Whoa, this is such a cool life I'm living," and he's not wrong. He is living a pretty cool life, right? So, but that's the place where he's at. Be in the place where you are. You can't do all that stuff because that's not where you are. You're down here at the bottom. Well, just focus on the one little thing that you can do. Just that one little thing that you can do. And like me, focusing on just work on the 5 minutes that you can do. And that's all you can do, right? So maybe your life is structured to a way where you can only apply these concepts in just one thing in one little way. Don't let that stop you from doing what you can do to thrive in your life. Get out there and make it happen. Do what you can do within the boundaries of your limitation. Do what you can do to express creativity and innovation and doing what you can do. And you'll find that eventually you have the ability to break through whatever limitation it is that's holding you down at present, right? I think a lot of us, if we were to apply this principle into our lives, we'd find that there's a lot more we could do than what we actually think. We're capable of so much more than we actually believe we're capable of. But we're not going to actually see it for ourselves until we take that leap of faith and actually step out and start doing. Uh, so looking at the calendar here, I think this is the last quote from the book. Yeah, I think this is the last quote. So let's dive in. When you use the buyback principle correctly, you aren't ultimately just searching for more money. You're freaking typos. You're upgrading constantly to purpose. You're transferring tasks you don't enjoy to someone else who might, so you can invest back in your life. The moment you stop living, you start dying. My plan is to do the opposite, to live so much death can't keep up with me. If I retired, I wouldn't start doing what I love. I'd have to quit doing what I love because the buyback principle allows me to live the life I want today. I have no plans to retire, ever. I plan on continually uh, typo, buying back my time, applying the buyback principle and enjoying my life. I've no desire to sell my company and retire so I can hang out in Italy for 3 months doing nothing. Today, I can go to Italy for 3 months and invite my favorite people, all who work with and for me, to collaborate in ways that employ all of our own individual art classes. Remember, he said he loved art class rather than math class. My business allows me, in fact, encourages me to use my own skills to solve real problems with people I love. For instance, this week I'll spend Thursday night dating the world's most beautiful woman. Wom, wom. Hey, who wants a wom? Come on, brethren. Who wants to go with it? Dating the world's most beautiful woman, my wife, just like I do every Thursday night. I'll go mountain biking with my friends, just like I do every week. What is it with these typos? I can't believe there's so many. I'll spend ample time with my two boys. Just, oh gosh, I can't take it. Oh my gosh, like the inner grammarian to me. It's like fingernails on a chalkboard. just, just, just like I do every week. I also like going hot tubbing, so I'll spend an hour a day in the hot tub relaxing, reading books, and feeding my mind with new and cool ideas. Why retire from any of that? I invite you to stop waiting for retirement to build the life you want. This idea resonated so well with me because I came to this conclusion on my own many years ago. I decided, why am I adopting this model that's been given to me by society that I should work like the Dickens for, like 3 or 4 decades, and then I retire, and then I can start enjoying life. Why can't I just enjoy life now? Right? And so this idea that he has resonates with me. Now, again, I'm a PhD student, so I'm not making that much money right now. So, I can't actually do the things that he's describing here, but make no mistake, I got my mind on it. And I've got my own ideas about how I'm going to arrange things in my life so that I get to this spot. Um, because I mean, this is the thing, is like, don't let other people do your thinking for you. Come to your own conclusion, right? Too many of us as LDS singles just take the model we've been given by our LDS culture as to how things should be. I think we need to start questioning everything, personally. I think we need to just start having discussions about all of the assumptions that are underlying our thinking. And it's part of what we do here on Join the Journey Radio, right? We want to encourage new and different ways of thinking because, you know, the problems that we have in our lives are not going to be solved with the same level of thinking that created those problems. That's a quote from Einstein, by the way. We've got to learn to think in new and different ways. We got to learn to be creative and innovative. And, I just love the spirit of creativity and innovation, that is employed in this book. And that's why, we're talking about it today. Even though he wrote it for entrepreneurs, I think there's a lot in here that applies to the LDS singles and LDS singles life. So, yeah, think about this for yourself, right? Like whatever career you're in, stop waiting for retirement to build the life you want. Start doing what you can, even if it's only just one thing in a very small, limited space. Start doing what you can, to build toward the life you want to have. I think that's how we thrive. I think having a life where we thrive as Irish Saint singles is not a destination, it's a journey. The thriving comes not by getting somewhere, but by going somewhere. If that makes any sense, right? It's the act of actually moving, it's the motion. Like if you've ever seen the movie World War Z, right? So they're at the beginning, you know, uh, Brad Pitt's character, he's there, with his wife and his kid, and they're in this project, and they're huddled in this apartment with this Hispanic family or Latino family. I mean, I don't know what the word du jour is, but you understand what I'm saying. I'm not trying to offend. I'm just saying you understand what I'm saying. So, he's trying to convince these guys to come with him. And they don't want to. They want to stay put. And, you know, Brad Pitt's character says, El movimiento es la vida. Movement is life. That's so true, I think, of Elias Single's life and how we find joy. How do we thrive? It's in movement. The thriving is in the movement, not in actually getting somewhere and staying still. It's in the movement, it's in the growth, it's in the expansion. That's where the thriving is to be found. So, even though you may be in a position where you can't do a whole lot right now, identify where you want to be, identify the life you want to create for yourself, and then identify what is it about. What can I do now in the space where I'm at? I'm going to be in the place where I am. What can I do now in the space where I am to move towards that life? And I think that's how we live our best life. It's not in arriving somewhere, it's actually in moving towards that better state. So I lied. I actually do have one more quote. I actually do have one more quote. So, but it's only just the one slide. So let's finish up. As Marianne Williamson said in her mega bestseller Return to Love, your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. Playing small doesn't serve you, your loved ones, or any of your relationships. It teaches others to play small. By playing small, you become something less than you might otherwise be. By playing small, you deprive the world of your genius. Instead, be who you can be. Finishing this book is your vote toward playing a bigger game, stepping into a bigger identity, living a bigger life. Because if you don't, who will? This is the final words that he has in his book, and I just thought it would be great to be the final words for the broadcast here today. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so other people won't feel insecure around you. How many of us, as we confront the challenges of a singles life, are satisfied with mediocrity and playing small? Playing small doesn't serve anybody. It's only the people who can dream big and go after those big dreams that actually end up changing the world. And these are the people that we should strive to be more like. Um, so, so um, play a bigger game. Step into a larger sense of self, and a lot of that comes from, as I said before, just um, being um, being your best self. You know, find your personal ministry and take that personal ministry on. And I think that a lot of us that otherwise um, I think you want to live your best life. That's the only way there. I really do. I really think that's the only way to live your best life. And so, you know, that's all I leave you to do. Just, kind of think about, we've talked a lot about all sorts of different concepts here today. Um, think a little bit about, maybe, not everything that I shared with you today will help you, but if there's one idea that really resonated with you, there's one idea that the spirit came and nudged you and said, hey, give this a thinking. Give this a little, tour of the noggin. Maybe you should do that because, playing small doesn't serve anybody. Get out there and be the best that you can be. And, embrace a personal ministry that makes a contribution to make the world better. Leave your dent in the universe. Make your mark. And quit whining about what you don't have or what you can't do. And start playing in that sandbox that's labeled, this is what you can do. This is, what you do have. Start focusing there. And I think that, as you do that, you'll find opportunities, you'll find new ways of thinking that didn't occur to you before. You'll find opportunities to feel empowered, to feel liberated, and to feel more joy in your journey. Well, that's all we've got for Join the Journey Radio today. Again, I hope I was able to do something that helped you because that's why we're here. And thanks to every one of you for joining in today. No one in the chat, so get nothing to answer with that. But if you have something you'd like to say about what we discussed today, go ahead and leave it a comment down below. If you have a topic or a question you'd like to see us address on the program, we're happy to help. Please leave a comment down below. If there's something we can do to help you overcome the challenges of LDS singles life, well, you got it. You know what I'm going to say. Leave a comment down below. So you could also go to the contact page at jointhejourneyradio.com/contact. Send us a message. And as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share our content that you find helpful so that the other Latter-day Saints singles can, find our content. Because, when you like, share, and subscribe, the algorithms will push our content out more. And so that'll help more people. Again, don't play small, think big. So, you know, so we got for today. Until next time, this is your host reminding you there is joy to be had all along your journey. So take that joy and journey on.